know him from Boy Culture. We also know him from another film that came out not too long ago called From Zero to I Love You. And of course, Noah's Ark. That's iconic. He is a Black gay icon. The one, the only, Darryl Stephens. How are you?
It's so weird when you say he is a Black gay icon. I'm still like, really? Is that really? Okay, thank you. I'm good.
You
I'm very
are.
good. I'm very good. Yeah, people tell me that, and I'm just like, it's weird. Yeah.
When you were cast on the show, did you know it would have that type of impact?
Yeah, didn't know what the impact would be. Didn't know if people would respond. We did have a sense that we were doing this for the kids, right? Like the people who we saw at the catch, the kids who we saw at the catch. We knew who we were emulating, who we were, the kids, the characters that we were trying to embody. We see them out. We know who they are, but now we're getting to live their lives. So I think there was something exciting about that part. Early on, we knew that we were doing something that we hadn't seen on screen, but we'd seen in real life. So, yeah, no idea the impact it would have. No concept at all.
When did you first recognize that it was having an impact on the Black gay community and the Black community? Because I also remember a lot of Black women were watching the show who had never seen anything like that before.
The first time I would say that I really grasped it, I think the show launched in October of 2004. And in December of 2004, I was in New York in the Village. And I've told this story many times, but minding my business, walking with some people. Her name was Chocolate. I'm saying her now. I think back then we didn't even necessarily have language for, the kids who were gender expansive in the ways that they are now. Like I'm saying her, but I don't know how they identified or currently identify. But their name was Chocolate. She had micro braids, fur coat. If Chocolate, if you were out there, could you reach out to me? Because I feel like I talk about you all the time, and I would love to see how you're doing. That's it. She saw me walking with some people, stopped, started jumping up and down in front of me. And I'm like, whoa, you okay? I wasn't ready for any of that. Running around me in circles, screaming, Noah, you were the first time I've seen myself on screen. You. And it's just like, oh. To this day, I get choked up thinking about like having somebody fabulous. This kid was fabulous in the Village. Who knows what they were going through, right? But saw Noah and thought, finally, at my big age of 18 or however old she was, I'm seeing somebody who I can relate to on screen. And that to me was just extremely profound because it really sort of, it validated the work for me. There was a lot of critique about the acting, the writing, the wardrobe, the unrealistic nature of the relationship between this femboy and this, I guess, DL brother, whatever he was at that point. And, I was constantly sort of doubting myself and doubting the worth of the show and feeling like, okay, we did it. We tried. Maybe it didn't resonate the way that we hoped it would, but we put our all into it and we'll see what happens. And then hearing Chocolate talk about it, I want to say it was like New Year's Eve or something. We were just out in the streets and she was getting her life, seeing my, nobody ass on the street. And so I was like, oh, this is actually resonating with people. And it's the people who are writing about it are not necessarily who the show is for. And then, as you mentioned, Black women started responding to me. The majority of the interaction that happened on MySpace was not with Black gay men. It was with Black women. They were the ones who pumped me up before anybody did. Black women came in and were like, straight and gay. The lesbians held me down for sure, but straight women came in and were like, yo, I don't know who you are, but you okay with me? It was very like almost motherly, sisterly. Yeah, Black women are very special that way. They make you feel taken care of, in a way that you don't even know you need sometimes. So they did. And that's when I felt like, oh, this show is gonna mean something to somebody.
So are we gonna get any new Noah's Ark movies or shows?
All right. So I think that the gist of what I can say is conversations are happening and something is coming. I don't know if I can talk about where or what it looks like or anything like that, but there have been conversations. There have been, we've all been reached out to and communicated with and all that stuff. And from what I can see, something very promising is potentially happening.
Okay, we'll take that. Let's talk about some of the other roles that we know you for. Boy Culture, which is one of my personal, that's my favorite movie that you've done, is Boy Culture.
Thank you.
Also, you did Beyond the Lights.
I've only been able to watch it once because when I watched it in the theater when it was, the premiere, I was very much like, oh yeah, I was feeling small when we shot this. We didn't have our own trailers. We were sitting in rooms, me and the girl who played the makeup artist, sitting in a hotel room with somebody else. It was very much like, where do we just, okay, this is so weird. We shot our scenes at 4 a.m. It was very weird. It was very, very weird. This is not to say anything negative about Gina Prince Blythewood, who's the director. She was amazing, but it was a process that for me felt very much like, this is not, you're not Noah of Noah's Ark. You are somebody in the background, and you have to figure out what that looks like as an actor. You have to inhabit that completely, while also feeling like I don't have anywhere to go and do that because I don't have a dressing room. I had this very weird relationship with that movie.
It's one thing to be like A-list in the Black gay world, as an entertainer, and then go over in mainstream, and it's just like.
I had that same experience when I did a film called Bolden in 2000, I want to say 7. The second season of Noah's Ark had wrapped. I think had been told at that point that there wouldn't be a third season, but there'd be a movie, maybe, or we were still waiting on the third season. And so Anthony Mackie, Omar Gooding, what's his name? The dude from 8 Mile, Eugene Bird, all these Black actors, Robert Richard, somebody who I love, who's also from The Wire, Winston, what is his name? I'm gonna mess it up. Some amazing Black actors were in this movie, and it was a very straight Black man movie, right? It was very much about the energy on set was very straight Black man, and I felt myself again like shrinking. Like, where am I supposed to be? How am I even here? How do I fit in this room? Now that movie never came out. It ended up being completely reshot without Anthony Mackie as the lead because he became Captain America or Eagle Man or something. He got too busy. And the writer director was doing a lot of reshoots and sort of reimagining things on the fly and on the spot. So that shooting process was very strange. I never saw that footage of how I inhabited that space at all, but I do remember the feeling of being on that set and it being very different. When you're on the set of Noah's Ark and all the people there you love, like me and Rodney are like giggling and cuddling, hugging and stuff, and off camera, and they walk on the sound stage and do it there too. It's a very different vibe of Anthony Mackie talking about a strip club or whatever. It was a very different world for me. So I did sort of have to find my footing in that world. And I don't feel like I ever quite, like, I would probably be less intimidated in a room where there was at least, I don't know, some women, something about it being like a lot of, and there were dancers. Once the dancers showed up, and many of them were Black women, I relaxed a lot. But when it was just us and the band, it was just the Bolden's band, straight Black men, I was very like, this is
If there is a role that you could imagine for Darryl Stephens to play, what would it be? What is your dream role?
I had a role on a show called Be Positive on CBS. It was a sitcom. There was something about being sort of like a smart ass who came on and has some things to say, was a professional and good at his job, was educated and not to be fucked with. I really loved the character in the second season. We didn't see enough of him, and we didn't know what his life, he sort of disappeared. But in the first season, I felt like we were really getting a sense of what this Black gay man in this world of other people is, what his dreams could be. Like, I was singing with Annalie Ashford on CBS. Like, it's crazy when you think about what happened first season versus where it ended up going. But a character like that with a little bit more to do, I would love to just be somebody, a medical professional, a lawyer, somebody who has a real career and an expertise that they maybe shock people with, maybe don't, but like are good at their job, good with a quick, a comeback. I feel like that's kind of what the persona I've sort of been building up in my own life. I've sort of gotten to be like, I know how to talk to people generally, and I feel like that's something that I would like to see, me do for like 5 or 6 seasons until it's in syndication and I can just raise my baby.
We're gonna keep our fingers crossed and put that out there so that can happen. I want that for you. I think you would absolutely body that. So we're gonna keep that out there. And you just brought something up that got my attention. So you said you're a dad now.
I'm a dad now. She's 2.5. I'm at the house with the kid. Like, she's in preschool now, so I'm taking her to school and picking her up. It's a lifestyle. It's a vibe.
How was it transitioning from being a career man to a family man?
It actually feels very good. It feels like the timing is perfect to take the focus off of me and put it on somebody else. Like, as actors, maybe even particularly gay actors, or actors who somebody maybe thought was cute once, we're very focused on our appearance, the gym. Like, there's a balance that has to be achieved for sure, but there's also something very freeing and liberating and rewarding about throwing yourself into taking care of somebody else and not making it about you.
Let's get into your life some. Let's talk about Daryl growing up. Tell us where you're from and what was it like growing up for you, and when did you recognize that you were attracted to other guys?
I grew up in Altadena and Pasadena, which is not far from Hollywood, like 30, 40 minutes east. I'd say I knew that there was an attraction to boys young, very young, like my stepdad. This is in my book, that my little memoir, but I think around 4 or 5, my stepdad was washing up in the bathroom, naked. The door was open, and I was just like transfixed, like, what's all that? And he turned to me and was like, "Don't do that." I don't know what language he used. I don't think he said fag, but that was very much the tone of what he said. Don't do that, boys. Don't look at other boys. Something. So at that very young age, I knew, okay, that's something I'm interested in. And then also, don't do that. Can't do that in front of him or other people. So yeah, 4 or 5 or 6 maybe. I knew the attraction was there. I knew I had to hide it. I knew probably in my heart that there was just going to be a time when I was going to break free of that. I do think that somehow I knew I had faith that I was going to create a life for myself wherein I would not be confined to that understanding of what life is supposed to be. It didn't make sense to me then, and it to this day does not make sense. Like, why, if that's the way I feel, should I be hiding that from you?
What type of experiences did you have that allowed you to fully come to terms with your sexuality, both in the identity and the sex? Because a lot of gay men, but especially Black gay men, struggle with the two, merging the two.
That's a very interesting question. I would say that a big part of the identity was actually in doing theater, gay theater. There was a theater troupe that did a show. I want to say it was either my first semester or my second semester at school. And they were tackling sexuality, homosexuality head on from a very sort of almost academic, but also entertaining and funny and campy way. And there was something about that, which I would say certainly primed me for Noah's Ark. There was a sense of humor about it, sort of you gonna deal with it sort of approach. This is what it is, deal with it. That we took, in the early mid 90s on that campus, that I feel like really helped me sort of form my sense of self in terms of like, there's nothing for me to apologize for. You not understanding it is not really my problem. Sorry you don't feel good about it, but really not my problem. So I'm not really sorry. I'm not really that sorry. That being said, the merging of the sexuality with the identity, that's such a good question. Samson, good question. Yeah, I almost want to say that there was, I wasn't super sexually active in college. I certainly had some experiences, went on some dates, had some, saw some stuff. But, there were also things much further than, things that Daryl would personally be comfortable doing that were happening on campus that I was just not into. And I think that in that sense, because I was aware of them, there were, for example, men's rooms in certain halls, buildings where you knew things were happening. If you happen to stumble in there a certain time of day, you'd be like, what is all the foot tapping? And you knew shit was going on. And I was like, okay, so that's not my vibe. Let me see, let me figure out what my vibe is. Something about being in a space where you could run the gamut in terms of what you were open to trying, that the options were endless, sort of. For me, I think helped me figure out, okay, I'm probably like good about in this space right here. All that over there, I'm gonna leave to the other kids, right? I'm good with this. So I think in that sense, it did help me, figure out who I am sexually and sort of like what I was going to allow myself to get caught up in, because Berkeley presented all options. And I was like, okay, this isn't my vibe.
Because there's this idea, I think, that all gay men are super sexual. And so I think a lot of us have different experiences where we learn to connect to our sexuality that aren't always directly sexual. So that's why I always ask gay men, like, how did you learn to connect with it? And I think, yeah.
It's such a good question because I don't think that I've ever honestly considered it. Like when and how did I actually connect with the sexual part of my sexuality? Like the identity is all over the place, right? Like, Daryl's a gay man. There's no question there. When it comes down to what that means, in practice, it's a completely different conversation.
I think all Black gay men have particular challenges that we face. What was your challenge and how did you manage to overcome it?
I'm not even sure I've overcome it. I have in my life had a very interesting, I'm not sure how to talk about this, relationship with straight Black men.
Mm.
Don't always feel safe around them, right?
Why is that?
The ones that I grew up with in high school, I feel like they were the ones who clocked me first. They recognized something was off. So I was always felt like I was, my guard was up around them. I never felt quite like I was, and with most people, I'm like, this is what it is. And somehow with straight Black men, I can, I was talking about it briefly earlier about my experience on the set of Bolden, how it just becomes like this, like, I honestly can't really put my finger on what it is, but love being around gay Black men, but straight Black men, I have this thing where I'm like, also, you have one experience where you think somebody's hitting on you and they're not, and you're like, what? So what is going on here? So there's always been this sort of guard that flies up around them, and it bugs me.
Do you think more of us in the Black gay community are affected by that than we know, say, for instance, by the way we criticize each other and the way that we perform masculinity, or not?
I think that the expectations of performing masculinity, I would say Black women have just as much of a role in that, in terms of maintaining that for us. They tell us what's expected of us as well. But the threat of physical violence, I never felt as profoundly with anybody as I did with Black men. I want to be able to walk into a room with all the brothers from Insecure and be like, hey, what's up, Jay? I want to be that guy. But I get very like, okay, all right. Like I was at a table with, his name is Jay Ellis, right? The dude who plays Lawrence on Insecure. Mm-hmm. I was at a table with him for this event called Add Color and did not say a word. And I love Lawrence. But I was like, it was my own projection of what a straight Black actor, and I don't know him, I don't know what he does, but what someone who I assume is a straight Black actor is expecting of me is going to present to me. Like he did nothing wrong. This was it was not on him at all. But I left that night thinking, why didn't I say hi to him? We were at the same table. Maybe I did say hi, but I didn't engage. It was very like, hello.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I
didn't expect to go there, but it's something when you asked, I was like, yeah, there's that one thing. Why?
I'm just gonna put this out there and say, we talked earlier about this ideal role for you. I think getting past this is gonna help get you to that role.
I think you're absolutely right.
What do you think or what do you think are some of the biggest challenges for Black gay men, and how do you think we should overcome those challenges?
If anything, we have to figure out how to navigate life in this country that is founded on white supremacy in the same ways that all Black people do and all people of color do. So it's for me, it's that. And for me, it's about figuring out ways to support each other, support others who are also dealing with it in ways that feel inclusive and not, a challenge that I don't know if I would say this today, but a few years ago, I feel like Black gay men were saying dumb shit about Black trans women. That's something I was like, y'all need to fix that now. All of us have to get together to navigate this, because it's coming for all of us. And you worried about what? I see straight Black women on Twitter losing their minds about another Black woman on Twitter putting makeup on her nephew because he asked for it. Why are you worried about that? How is that affecting your life?
We are starting to see more prominent Black men, especially in media, embracing trans and non-binary children. For instance, Dwayne Wade, and the community is outraged about that.
There's a part of me that understands the logic of it, which is Black men have been emasculated. If you allow this child, this who we think is a Black man, it needs to be the A, B, and C to succeed in this world that hates Black men. If you allow this child to be anything less than what they told us we had to be, you're dooming that child. I get the logic of that to an extent. But I don't believe that thinking actually applies here. I think that what will actually change the world for the better is us embracing every form of Blackness that we see, all of it. That includes me and straight Black men. That means that we have to figure out how to love on all of us. Because once we are all together on this, once we're not fighting each other on these little things that we see as differences, who's gonna stop us?
I appreciate your passion.
Thank you.
Last question. What has been your biggest life lesson? And if you could share that to help somebody else, what would that be?
My biggest life lesson, I think, would be that you need to focus on gratitude. Wherever you are in your life, figure out how to focus on all the blessings, all the good things. If you can shift your perspective away from the negative's there, it's not going away until we do something about it, right? It's gonna be there. But if you can fill your day with being grateful for the fact that you woke up, the fact that you're sitting up, the fact that your leg moves when you try to move it, any of those things, whatever you are going through, finding gratitude. I, some days, do not want to get up when that kid wakes up. I do not want to be the one to make her breakfast and start the coffee. I do not. Some days I don't want to do that. And then I look around and go, but look at my life. I get to take this beautiful child to school. There's nothing but gratitude. There's nothing but gratitude for the life that, I have managed to live. And it really, there was I had some dark years. I would say around, I don't know if you ever saw the show DTLA, but around the time that we shot that and then it aired or something, around 2012, 13, there was no money. Like Daryl was broke. And I could not see anything but the lack. I couldn't see anything but what I did not have, the rent that wasn't getting paid. I was inundated. I was like negativity. I was lashing out at people personally because I was in such a dark place. And then my friend Jeff Bornman kept saying to me, you got to focus on what you're grateful for. And I couldn't hear it then. And then at some point, it just clicked. And when you're deep in the dark, you don't, and someone's like, look at the light. You're like, bitch, there's no light. It's there. You may have to dig for it. You may have to move some rocks and some shit out the way, but it's there. And you have to focus on the light because it will save you.
Mm. Well, I think that was perfect.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad we had this chat, Samson. It's been a minute.